Adelante, mi queridísimo Jorge.
¿Qué tal? Pues ya estamos de regreso, mi querido Jorge, nuevamente aquí en este programa de Dos Fronteras. Ya estuvo, bueno, hubo un tiempecito casi libre, descansando, y bueno, no sé, estamos de regreso nuevamente y teníamos programado a nuestro gran querido amigo Raúl Arbizu, este peleador pues mexicano, que radica allá en Tijuana, mi querido Jorgito. Pues ya regresando, está con nosotros Simon, Jorge Braga, nuevamente aquí en su programa de Dos Fronteras. Y pues bueno, vamos a dar inicio. Esperemos que Raúl se pueda conectar con nosotros en unos momentos. Y bueno, vamos a platicar un poquito sobre la trayectoria de Raúl Arbizu. Digamos así, es alguna leyenda, mi estimado Jorge, es ya una leyenda, lleva, ¿qué será? 25 años en el deporte.
No, más, muchísimos más, mi queridísimo Jorge. Oye, pero antes disculpa que te interrumpa, pero a mí me gustaría saludar con mucho gusto a mi queridísimo amigo Simon Williams, que lo vemos nuevamente por acá. Qué gran alegría volver a verlos. Efectivamente, como dijo Jorge, estuvimos unos días, unas semanas fuera. Eso es, yo asumo la responsabilidad. Hemos estado sumamente ocupadísimos y no habíamos podido transmitir, pero hoy nos conectamos y aquí está. Saludo a mi queridísimo amigo Simon Williams. Muy buenas tardes.
Simon, welcome to the show, man. We have a long break, and we are waiting for this Mexican fighter, famous.
Welcome back to Two Borders Jiu-Jitsu podcast. It's nice to see you all again, broadcasting in two languages, slowly making space for each other. We're speaking to Professor Raúl Arbizu, who is MMA practitioner in his own right, with a short career back at the turn of the century, but also, and I guess more importantly, head of the Entram, the very famous Entram gym in Tijuana, and coach of a few very notable mixed martial artists, including the undisputed UFC champion Brandon Moreno. So we're looking forward to talking to him and getting back into it.
Yeah, no, that will be fantastic. I remember, like in the beginning of his career, I think it was probably 20 years, more than 20 years, I guess. I have the opportunity to meet Raúl in Mexico City and enroll with him. Back in the day, I think I was a white belt. I remember, I don't know how many strikes I have back in the day. But he came to Renzo Gracie, Mexico City, center right there, and we fought together, and his game was really, really good. And when back in the day, also, like a lot of people didn't talk much about leg locks, he was actually a really a good in applying these leg locks before they become a thing now. And one of the reasons why he was really good is because he is a direct student from Dean Lister, one of the master of the leg locks, right, Jorgito? ¿Qué piensas, Jorgito?
No, pues sí, imagínate, es de los pioneros, de los primeros mexicanos que yo vi pelear en MMA, y sí, imagínate, alumno o cercano a alguien que ayudó mucho a introducir el Jiu-Jitsu a México, que es Dean Lister, así es, efectivamente. Sí. Y bueno, formador de grandes peleadores. ¿Sabes qué estaba pensando ahorita? Él ayudó mucho a esta peleadora que se le zafó el hombro hace poquitito, a Azul Lara, ¿te acuerdas?
Oh, Azul Lara, sí, claro que sí. Sí. Pues ha tenido, yo creo que uno de los sueños de Raúl es que pues lleva casi 4 o 3 años establecido ya formalmente en Tijuana, en uno de sus gimnasios, ¿no? Sí. Y ese fue su sueño máximo después de pues pelear, ¿no? Tuvo casi 4 peleas profesionales esta información tenemos en el ShareDoc, no podemos confirmarla porque no lo tenemos a él directamente en el programa, pero en su historial lleva 4 peleas profesionales, 3 ganadas y una perdida en aquel entonces, ¿no? Era pues un peleador completo, como todos los peleadores en Tijuana, ¿no? Aguerridos también.
Sí.
Recuerdo mucho a los hermanos Reyes, que todavía se encuentran establecidos ahí en Tijuana y en la franja de San Diego, ¿no? Unos grandes personajes que son los hermanos Reyes que están ahí establecidos. Ya una gran escuela internacional, pero creo que Raúl le ha picado muchísima piedra para establecerse ahí y creo que es una escuela internacional, de las primeras escuelas internacionales. So, you know, Simon, this guy, Raúl is one of the first fighters that is been established in Mexico for probably more than 30 years, as Jorge recalled right now. And I think, you know, we have a lot of great fighters in Tijuana. I remember the Reyes brothers, that they are really well established there, really famous. They have a brand of the boxing brand, I guess, that's called Reyes back in the day. Really, you know, Tijuana is one of the hot spots for the mixed martial arts, especially for Mexicans and Latin American. And Raúl is the head of his first, gym. He was dreaming to open his gym for many years, and I think the last 3 or 4 years, he finally accomplished his dream and opened his mixed martial arts schools. Right, Jorge? So,
así es.
I was it's one of the things I'm kind of curious about. It's within Mexico, whether it's within Tijuana in the region, you know, you have this really long tradition of boxing gyms producing loads and loads of Mexican. I mean, even for old men like me, think back, you know, even in Wales, back to the days of Roberto Duran and people like that, later Chavez, nowadays Canelo, and, you know, all the wonderful boxers in between. Does that impact on the mixed martial arts scene? Does it mean that people are more likely to, you know, if you've got a talented athlete and a talented fighter and a kid who's got the work ethic and wants to spend every day in the gym, is it more likely they go into boxing? Is the sort of, are the UFC as a mixed martial arts scene and people like Raúl competing with that? Are they able to compete with that?
Yeah, I think in the past, probably, you know, like mixed martial arts is brand new. It has only 20 years in Mexico, or maybe more, but, you know, like solid 20 years, I will say. But boxing goes really beyond like many years, like more than, I will say 80 years, I guess, you know, because Mexicans always, they love the sport. They always dream about to become, you know, famous and you know, they have so many champions from Julio Cesar to Canelo, you know, one of the greatest fighters, I guess, in Mexico. So traditionally, most of the Mexicans were training boxing, but, you know, like we have also judo, taekwondo, and some other martial arts, you know, schools that were there. But just recently, I think the mixed martial arts boom was probably 20 years, right, Jorge?
Sí, definitivamente sí. Y bueno, lo que tú mencionabas y lo que menciona precisamente, pues lo que estaba comentando Simon, ¿no? O sea, el punto que representa Tijuana, ¿no? Un lugar en donde bien especificabas, hay una escuela de boxeo muy poderosa, un asentamiento, que tiene la característica que intercambia tanto con el boxeo mexicano del centro y fácilmente puede brincar la frontera y enfrentar al boxeo americano. Entonces, la verdad es que esa es una de las ventajas, uno de los puntos fuertes para hacer de Tijuana, y en este caso de Entran Jiu-Jitsu, una punta de lanza en cuestiones de las artes marciales mixtas, ¿no?
Yeah, and actually, you know, one of the things about Arvizu is that he was crossing the border back and forth. Back in the day, he was going to Dean Lister, who opened a school in San Diego, just right after the border, I think. And Dean Lister is a student of Fabio Santos, a direct student from Fabio Santos, one of the students from the Gracie. And Fabio Santos is one of the greatest teachers over there, and he trained Dean Lister. Then Dean Lister, opened his school, and then he looked more into or jump into the no-gi, I guess. And then he became really famous because he was the first guy actually to apply those formal leg locks like that. Danaher is famous now because of that. But they say Danaher pretty much talked to Dean Lister, and Dean pretty much told him, like, you don't use leg locks, you're gonna be half of the way of learning jiu-jitsu, because it opens up for so many things. But back in the day, we only train leg locks until you were a proper level. But that's how he was connected. And Raul being in Tijuana and being in that area, he was pretty much able to have or to grab that knowledge from these people, And I remember, I think Dean Lister was a champion in Brazil twice, or I don't know how many times, but he went there, and then he started training a lot of people back there in San Diego, and Raul was one of his students. And I have the opportunity, as I say, 20 years to roll with him, and he was really good in level lock. So.
Oye, Jorge, Dean Lister, ¿en dónde tiene su academia? No era de Phoenix.
No, la tenía o la tiene en San Diego.
Ah, ok, pues entonces era
ahí por el cajón.
Cruzar el patio nada más.
Sí, exactamente. Sí, era sorprendente, ¿no? Porque, bueno, antes que tenía la oportunidad de cruzar así como perro por tu casa.
Sí.
Entonces, con la gente ahí en Tijuana que iba de...
It's interesting, isn't it? Do you think the current regime is making that kind of transfer of skills and training more difficult? Because, it's not as easy to transfer between Tijuana and San Diego or either way across the border as it used to be, right?
Well, back in the day, I think it was easy, you have a passport, or most of the people actually in Tijuana, just remember that also, historically speaking, Tijuana actually sort of like has like an access along the border, right? Because it belongs to California, part of that area, and some of them they have they were Americans, Mexicans, in the sense of that they have paper and stuff like that. And Raul, I think, I don't know exactly the story, but he has that opportunity to back and forth and fight in both sides, I guess. With Sherdog, I think he was fighting there. I remember that, and he was partnered with or training with Edwin Aguilar. Edwin Aguilar was, unfortunately, he died years ago, and I think he had a heart attack or embolia. I can't even remember that. He was also like a really
bastante joven,
Muay Thai guy, very very good, actually. When there for so many fights. Raul was also one of those. We can have Raul probably in the next session that we in here in Dos Fronteras. We're going to have Raul, who is also one of those guys who fought in K1, another Mexican, really good fighter back in the day, right, Jorgito? So,
Así es, ¿no? Pues, bueno, ahorita lo acabas de mencionar, lamentablemente nosotros no lo sabíamos, yo me imaginaba que seguía con vida este gran peleador Edwin Aguilar, de esos tipos duros, ¿no? O sea, de los tipos duros que iban a golpear con una gran escuela y que precisamente ellos conforman precisamente los pioneros. También con estos otros, ya vinieron como en segunda línea, se me fue el nombre de este profesor en Ciudad de México, Bueno, o sea, ellos fueron la punta de lanza, ¿no?
Sí, sí,
El profesor Arvizo tuvo la ventaja precisamente geográfica de que pues uno de los booms que hubo a nivel de artes marciales, porque allí llegó gran parte de la familia Gracie, es en la zona de California, ¿no?
La zona de California, exactamente. Oh, it was amazing, Simon, because, you know, like, this guy can cross the border, go there, you know, they have the knowledge and back and forth. Back in the day, too, they were this huge way because back in the day, they, you know, with the Gracies, they begin challenging, you know, some other martial artists like, you know, Taekwondo, Judo, and some other boxers and stuff like that. That way went all the way to Mexico, too, and we have the opportunity to test it. You know, I remember, like, some of the guys here were fighting with boxers or Taekwondo guys, and, you know,
I mean, you saw that in the early years of the UFC, right, where you'd have people going into UFC 1, people go like Art Jimmerson going in wearing a boxing glove, you know, boxing glove on one fist, and getting taken to the floor by Royce Gracie, and it's like, what are you going to do now? You literally just lay there for 5 minutes. He didn't put a lock on, he didn't put a choke on, nothing. He just tapped out because it's like these guys. It was, in some ways, there was a bullying aspect to it because people did not know jiu-jitsu escapes.
Yeah,
and they were grappled to the floor, and they either just gave up in frustration, or they were choked out, or the really unfortunate ones got caught in an armbar. But you know, there was it was really interesting that when you first started mixing those styles, nobody had an answer
Sí, claro.
jiu-jitsu at all. Yeah. Unless you caught someone with a lucky punch or a kick coming in, one or two of the boxers and the Muay Thai fighters did, but the majority of it was, you know, it wasn't even a very good spectator sport. You know, for the people watching it for the first time, it's like it's a cuddle, it's a clinch. Someone gets taken to the floor, they get mounted, and that's kind of it. You know, I guess if that hadn't started with the Gracies making those challenges, if the UFC 1 hadn't really been Helio Gracie and family wanting to demonstrate the superiority of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to other styles after their challenges, would it have evolved in a different way? Because you think of Raul now. Raul is a judoka and a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's got a bunch of talented people. I think he had in the past, like Brandon Moreno. He has a really good welterweight coming through now. Most of them he's basing in jiu-jitsu in some ways.
Yeah.
So the base of their style, although they can strike, they can kick. The guy, the Ecuadorian guy Morales, who's an amazing physical athlete, amazing stand-up boxer, but I think what he's probably evolved with him is based in BJJ. It's based in jiu-jitsu techniques, right?
No, hablar de Raúl, de Erwin Aguilar, de Raúl Romero, es hablar del pasado de las artes marciales en México, de su desarrollo, de su crecimiento. Bueno, me da un poquito de alegría, más bien muchísima alegría ver que Raúl trae un campeón, ¿no? Que es Brandon Moreno.
Brandon Moreno, sí. Bueno, a varios.
Que inició su trayectoria a los 13 años, casi a la misma edad que Raúl también empezó a entrenar las artes marciales en aquel entonces, ¿no? Entonces tienen casi el mismo desarrollo, pero en diferentes tiempos, ¿no? Y bueno, vemos que Brandon Moreno llegó a la cúspide a base de picar piedra y de un gran trabajo por la parte de la esquina que tiene, ¿no? Que en este caso es Raúl Arvizo, que fue encargado de llevarlo ahí al campeonato, ¿no? Y obviamente también, pues, el trabajo fuerte, la disciplina y el desarrollo de peleadores como Brandon Moreno, ¿no? Y esa ha sido siempre la categoría, y ahora esperamos que, pues, empiece a mejorar, pues, todo. Bueno, yo creo que he visto una gran evolución en todos los peleadores mexicanos, ¿no? Hoy en día, Jorge, tú sabrás de todo eso.
Así es. Fíjate que lo que tenemos que distinguir es que ellos han formado una escuela muy particular, como bien decía Simon, ¿no? La cuestión de que son fundamentalmente, tienen una buena escuela, una buena base de grapplers, pero que son buenos golpeadores, buenos pateadores, o sea, no saben manejar, por ejemplo, los cambios de altura, ¿no? O sea, las diferentes distancias que hay en el combate. O sea, vemos a gente con una genialidad muy particular, ¿no? O sea, si lo vemos en Brando Moreno, es un muchacho que tiene una adaptación, una plasticidad al cambiar sus esquemas de combate y que realmente eso es lo que marca la escuela del profesor Arbizu, ¿no?
Sí, no, es genial que, bueno, ahora todos los peleadores que están entrando nuevamente aquí en este deporte o los que están ahorita preparándose, ya son versátiles, ¿no?
Sí.
Ya entrenan el boxeo, el cambio de niveles, el grappling, el judo y etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? Algo que en la época de Raúl y en la época de UFC, en sus principios, pues no lo veíamos, ¿no? Era disciplina con disciplina y veías si cualquier peleador tenía el wrestling o era luchador ahí, como veíamos, o era boxeador o era taekwondo o Muay Thai, ¿no? Que eran las disciplinas que normalmente veíamos ahí. Pero hoy en día, pues ya vemos que todos se han preparado en todas esas áreas y están siendo, pues, más versátiles, ¿no? Luchadores más activos, más reaccionarios, más completos, digámoslo así.
Sí.
What do you think, Simon? Dime, Jorgito.
No, es que precisamente iba a decir algo que mencionó Simon, o sea, la característica de ese boxeo duro que tienen la gente de Tijuana, ¿no? Uh-huh. Precisamente tú mencionabas a los Reyes, que ellos tienen esa escuela de boxeo, de tirar hacia adelante. Tenemos a una gran reina del boxeo.
En Tijuana, ¿no? ¿De Tijuana es?
Sí, ¿cómo se llama? Hijos, es una gran amiga. Ahorita me vienen, se me fue justamente por pensar en ella, se me fue su nombre, pero allí eso es lo que tienen una potencia y un poder enorme. Adelante, Simon.
So what do you think, Simon? You know, we talk about like the, this history in Mexico with the boxing, as you mentioned before. You know, like before, even the people that we have been interviewed here, they have, you know, like discipline of wrestling, or they were like judo guys, or they were boxers, or taekwondo, blah, blah, blah. But now, you know, in today's time, we see all of these guys, you know, or the new generations, like being prepared into the boxing, into the...
I mean, that's something I was keen to ask Raul about, because, you know, I think a couple of months ago when we interviewed Alex Ortiz, you know, he's one of the like 18-year-old up-and-coming fighter, just the other side of the border. He started out as a kickboxer and a really good one, and you know, it would have been very easy for him as a fighter just to go ahead and continue in kickboxing, continue developing his skills. But there's kind of a natural wish now, and part of that is because of the UFC, and part of that is some of it's because of the money in mixed martial arts. But you know, he very early in his career, in his teens, as a pure kickboxer, he then needs to improve his grappling. He needs to improve his jiu-jitsu. You know, he's interested in takedowns. He's interested in other forms of strikes. So, yeah, I guess the thing I'm really interested in Mexico is, does the pull towards the tradition, the history, the culture of Mexican boxing, which is, you know, based around, or as far as an amateur like me can see, is based around kind of fundamental boxing techniques, very good defense, good movement, good footwork. Is that something that kind of overrides the impetus towards jiu-jitsu? I mean, if you're thinking about a gym in Tijuana, do you have more young people who want to go into boxing because of people like Canelo Alvarez, or are they gravitating kind of like American fighters towards mixed martial arts to start with?
I think they're gonna go to boxing, especially because you have the champions now, like Julio Cesar Chavez, Pushing, and Canelo. They're working together to create a new generation of fighters. And what they have been doing is that they have been, helping, some fighters. Like they have some money to help them funding some organizations that help them to accomplish their goals, or to find new stars or new kids. The difference between Mexico and the US is, I will say, it's still the economic gap that we have there. But in terms of heart and condition and like have the desire to become a champion, Mexico still have like a huge potential. That's why the champions, and then like Julio Cesar Chavez and Canelo and some other guys there, they've been helping the new generations to accomplish those goals. But even in martial arts, Jorge can tell you too. They have a lot of. You have one student that has a lot of potential, then you help him out. You know that he's gonna reach his goals, and that's how it is, I guess. Yes, still, Mexico has a huge gap, as I say before, but eventually, I think we see, for example, Rodriguez. What's his name? I guess I can't remember. It was a Puma, or what's his name? Jorge, ¿cómo se llamaba? Este peleador mexicano también que hizo mucho, no alcanzó el campeonato, pero muy bueno. El Pantera.
El Pantera Rodríguez, sí, Yair Pantera Rodríguez.
Yeah, it's el Pantera Rodríguez. So this kid has like he was another example, Simon, that he trained. He's coming from Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And then he didn't know much about wrestling or grappling or jiu-jitsu, and start mixing up and all of that kind of stuff. And then eventually just get there. Never reach. He was close to reach the champion.
He was interim champion for a while a few years ago, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yair Rodriguez we're talking about.
Yair Rodriguez. He almost reached the goal of getting there, but unfortunately he
this was kind of going to be one of my questions to Raul. Was a few years ago you had a bunch of Mexicans, either undisputed champions. You had Brandon Moreno, trained by Raul. You had Alexa Grasso in the women's. Then you had Yair Rodriguez, who I think was interim champion for a while.
Yeah,
there aren't that many Mexicans up and coming. So there aren't many Mexicans at that level now, or they're not as many as they were 4 or 5 years ago. What made that plateau off? Is it just that's cyclical, and that it takes a while to build up 2 or 3 fighters, and then you need kind of half a generation to do it again, or is it? Why isn't that pipeline coming through all the time? I guess is it just because there are more people around the world who are fighting in these competitions now?
I think it comes to one thing, and as probably Raul and Jorge can agree with me, it's about the discipline and the desire to overcome the hard work of because martial arts are really hard, and you have to have like a really, really strong discipline to become a champion in some point, or even to go through the fights, right? It's not like I see some interviews when Raul spoke about this exactly topic, and he says that like basically martial arts is not like you want to become a lawyer, right? You just go to school and open your books and attend the classes. Here is like you have to not only open the book and figure it out, the techniques and everything, is that you have to do the work. Yeah. And then you have to really face your opponent, and then face your qualities, or face your qualities against the other guy who probably can be better or no. But it's just, and also part of the mentality about how are you gonna become a strong fighter? And it's really hard, I guess.
Yo creo. Adelante, Simon, adelante.
No, I was going to say that's something he specifically talked about a few years ago about Brandon Moreno when he was at the top of the UFC. He said, you know, this is a kid I met, I think, at like 12 or 13, and he just came into the gym every day. If he was feeling sick, he'd bring a blanket and come and sit in the corner under his blanket. You know, he wasn't not coming into training at all, and he kind of contrasted that with his current welterweight, Michael Morales, the Ecuadorian, who's, you know, this incredibly physically gifted, dynamic, powerful, flexible athlete. And he said, you know, Brandon Moreno wasn't that necessarily. He was just someone who worked really, really hard all the time and wanted it all the time. And, you know, he says, it's really interesting. He says, what do you want most? Do you want that talent, that dynamism, that innate physical ability? And he said, no, what's much more important is work ethic. Coming into the gym every day for 10 years and doing that.
Creo que Alexa Grasso es un ejemplo también, ¿no? Que es la campeona, ¿no? De UFC. ¿Esas te referías, Jorge? Alexa Grasso.
No. Alexa Grasso, pues es formada por su familia, Francisco Grasso, y su padre, el profesor Luis Grasso, que son unos excelentes entrenadores y tienen una capacidad impresionante con una buena escuela de boxeo. No, me refería a Jackie Nava. Jackie Nava, peleadora durísima, pero abundando en lo que estaba diciendo precisamente Simon, efectivamente, si te das cuenta, las características físicas naturales de los peleadores mexicanos, comparativamente con, por ejemplo, con los atletas que vemos en Estados Unidos y en algunos otros lugares, por ejemplo, de Europa, ves sus físicos, ¿no? Por ejemplo, un Brandon Moreno, no das ahí, no le apuestas inmediatamente, ¿no? Pero tienen un gran contenido, una característica, un punto fundamental que hace al mexicano destacarse por encima de todos, que son las características mentales, las características guerreras. Somos... O sea, de hecho, me lo mencionan cada vez que hablo con la gente de Argentina. Hoy mismo estaba hablando cuando me hablaste en la mañana, estaba en una conexión con Argentina, y ellos dicen, si hemos llegado a lugares en donde nos han puesto durísimo, o sea, pegan durísimo, mexicanos. O sea, entonces es una característica mental, una característica de espiritual que tienen, ¿no? Y realmente, por ejemplo, yo lo veo con uno de los exalumnos que ahorita va constantemente allí a Tijuana para prepararse. O sea, cómo se destaca ese gran espíritu de guerrero que tienen los mexicanos, ¿no? Y si los pones en ese embudo, hay que también ver lo que representa Tijuana en este caso. Es como el cierre del embudo, si te das cuenta, ¿no? Sí. Ahí llegan todos, pum, 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 y se conectan, ¿no? Entonces hay una gran diversidad. Azul Lara creo que es de Colombia, ¿no? Creo que es colombiana. Ahí han estado ecuatorianos, como bien mencionaba Simon hace rato, ¿no? Entonces ahí van llegando todos, llegando todos, y se forma una escuela variopinta, ¿no? O sea, ahí con un montón de capacidades.
Sí, no. I think, you know, there's so many good qualities in the Mexican fighters. I think, you know, the sport needs to be a little bit more economically, getting more economically support by any company, sponsors, and stuff like that. Then I would think that we can reach a good level in the next couple of years if there are companies in Mexico who decide that they can help them accomplish those goals in terms of like investing in the athletes, in the preparation, the diet and stuff like that. But, you know, what is unique about Mexico is that just like boxing, is just any fighter from, they become, or they're coming from like a really poor areas, and I think that sort of decision that overcome poverty and any other obstacle around them, that's what they made them really powerful, I guess. Like you can see, for example, we have one of the greatest champions who was we call it like albañil in Spanish, but it's like basically like the handy man, or the builder guy in version of the US. But it was Salvador Sanchez, who was that guy. You see that guy, he was super skinny guy, like, and but the talent that he has once he was in the in the ring, it was amazing. He is actually one of the biggest stars of boxing, and one of those traditional guys that they come from the low classes, Mantequilla Nápoles. You can talk on and on and on. So all of those guys that they, Maromero Páez, who actually was in the two borders. So it's a long tradition. So I think mixed martial arts, as soon as they get those the companies helping out to overcome their lowest obstacles or invest in these people, I think we will have a really good it will be great for the Mexican fighters. We will see probably many of them in the UFC, I guess. That's what I'm trying to figure it out. And unfortunately, Raul probably is not with us right now, that he can tell us his experience as a fighter and as a coach. One of the biggest accomplishments of any coach now is just have a champion, and he did already. A week ago, when I just contacted him and I had the opportunity to talk to him about it a little bit, he was saying that he has a second guy who is probably gonna be as good as Brandon, and he has high hopes on this guy. So he's already.
I think that's Michael Morales, the originally Ecuadorian, who I mentioned earlier. I think he's been fighting out of Tijuana since about 2021, and he's if you watch some of his tapes, he won a fight earlier this year against, I think, Gilbert Burns, but he's really dynamic, kind of out of that judo jiu-jitsu background. I think black belt jiu-jitsu, did some amateur wrestling as well, but really, really dynamic striker as well. I mean, he's obviously, I guess Raul has obviously worked on his boxing as well, because he's only a welterweight. I wouldn't want to stand in a ring anywhere near him. He's a scary guy. He's one of those kind of really physically talented athletes.
Yeah, no. And also the other thing I want to talk about it is that Raul's school, I think, is one of the first schools to really focus, to really find a way of helping the fighters in terms of not only training, also like mentally preparation, just kind of like with the kind of background. For example, with when we talk about Ton Ortiz, that sort of mentality, but also put it in practice. I think Raul has this idea now of having this new school as one of the centers for that specialize in professional fighters, and he's in the right path, and he's been doing it, and he's expecting to have probably in the next couple of months or years to come one or two more champions, I would guess. What do you think, Jorge?
Sí, absolutamente. Y como tú bien dices, o sea, la visión que tiene la familia de Entram, en este caso, ¿cómo se llama? El profesor Arbizu, y esta Rosa María, creo que sí, Rosa María, en ambas aguas. Ellos, por ejemplo, tienen ahí en su misma en la misma Entram tienen alojamiento para los peleadores, o sea, hay un acompañamiento total hacia los peleadores, ¿no?
Sí,
Lamentablemente no está ahorita el profe Aviso para que nos complemente esa información, pero sé que tienen, por ejemplo, habitaciones allá, o sea, tienen como departamentos y allí están los atletas, están dedicados, como tú bien dices, ¿no? No solamente es una formación física y técnica, sino que además están teniendo la vigilancia de la alimentación, la cuestión de preparación psicológica, el apoyo complementario, porque hay que tomar en cuenta que el convertirse en un peleador de esos niveles representa una gran inversión personal.
claro que sí, sí, no, por supuesto. Es una gran inversión, un gran esfuerzo. Y precisamente él creo que también tenía, hablando ya de peleadores internacionales o latinoamericanos, creo que tenía una peleadora argentina que peleó en Asia,
Sí.
hace unos años también, ¿no? No creo que 1 o 2 años, parece, tal vez no, necesitaríamos verificarlo con Raúl, pero, you know, like, Simon, this is amazing because, you know, being a guy like exposed to the two borders like it is now is great because he has the vision of seeing, you know, what the American genes offers to the fighters, and then he just brought it to Mexico and with the same idea and offered to the Latin Americans, and I think it's one of the ways to go, and he's been very successful on this, I guess, and it's great, you know, it's having guys like that, you know. This is why I like
this sport wouldn't exist without having those porous borders. You know, you wouldn't have had the beginnings of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu without Masahiko Kimura coming from Japan and teaching the Gracies judo and teaching judo locks that came from the original Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and even Japanese fighting techniques before that. And, you know, Muay Thai striking has come from Thailand. You've got boxing techniques from all over the, you know, and borders getting in the way of that's going to continue to be a problem in the future. Otherwise, you know, you will end up with people like the Gracies taken away to one corner of one country for a while and then developing some style, as, you know, I guess has happened with people like Nurmagomedov as well in Dagestan with the wrestling styles that they developed there. You've got this little enclave of people who are fighting with each other for a long time and develop a style that, you know, is really, really difficult for other mixed martial artists to respond to.
Yeah,
that's how the UFC started. That's how, you know, you watch those early fights where, you know, people try to handle the Gracies without knowing what to do. And you watch some of the Dagestanis, you watch Nurmagomedov in the last few years, they're really hard to handle, and they're from, you know, they've not really been fighting outside quite a small enclave for quite a long time.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. What I like it, to see that sort of like vision of, you know, building something that can really work in Mexico and the US, and you know,
I think you've got to keep the transfer up. Like, you've got to keep learning those things from each other. You know, you've seen with the new wave of jiu-jitsu techniques and new wave jiu-jitsu, which I know a lot of the people we've interviewed have been sniffy about. But even as you talked about earlier, Jorge, the development of leg locks and the introduction of those into mixed martial arts competition, unless you keep crossing borders and unless you keep having that dialogue with each other, you don't have that development, and you certainly don't have so much exciting development.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, ¿qué piensas, Jorge? Tenemos campeones en México y los tradicionales. En el próximo evento esperamos que podamos tener a Raúl Romero, otro de los campeones mexicanos, fundadores de toda esta nueva generación que ahora está sembrando en todo México, ¿no? Y que se está expandiendo cada vez más. Y ya sea en cualquier parte, y lo vemos también ahora en cualquier esquina, ya sea en el boxeo americano o europeo o chino, siempre de alguna manera hay algún mexicano trabajando atrás de los sparrings, y ahora en el UFC pues no hay gran diferencia, también los vemos ahí trabajando, ya sea en el boxeo o ya sea en el taekwondo, algunos están ahí, pero hay muchísimo crecimiento en el deporte, pues algo que no lo veíamos hace 20 años, no había solamente como 2 o 3 academias aquí en aquel entonces. Y las van a salir, ¿no? Y ahora me da alegría ver que hay no sé cuántas en cada estado, ¿no?
Sí.
De la ciudad, de diferentes, ya sea Todd Brother o ya sabes, alguno de los Gracie, las escuelas de Gracie, o cualquier persona que ya le puso su propio nombre ahí a las escuelas en México. Este crecimiento ha sido increíble.
Exponencial, sí.
Me hace sentir alegre de que pues muchos de ellos, de las personas que conocimos, están dando las clases ahora, ¿no? Ya los vemos ya todos viejitos, como todos, pero siguen picándole piedra. El profesor Ángel allá en la Ciudad de México, con el Top Brother, Mario Delgado ahí en la Ciudad de México, con Renzo Gracie, tú en el sur, Arbizu ahí en el norte, y algunos más, ojalá no se ofendan ni nada, pero algunos más que estuvieron en ese proceso y ahora son unos profesores que tienen sus propias escuelas ahí en todos lados, ¿no?
Así es.
Pues da cierto orgullo, ¿no? Tenemos también la Federación Mexicana, que creo que está, no recuerdo cómo se llama, Tomás Delgado, que es
profe Tommy, sí.
Gran escuela de Jiu-Jitsu, ¿no? Que finalmente tenemos la Organización Mexicana de Jiu-Jitsu dirigida por mexicanos y establecida por ellos, ¿no? Que está haciendo un gran trabajo también en todos lados, ¿no? Entonces,
así es.
Ha sido, pues increíble, y algo que podemos ver. Ojalá nos dé más orgullo tener campeones al nivel de Brandon Moreno o algunos otros, o sea, como el Pantera, o algunos con cualidades extraordinarias de peleadores, como lo fue en su época Raúl Arbizu, Edwin Aguilar, y bueno, el gran Raúl Romero, que ojalá esté mejorando su salud y que podamos tenerlo en la próxima sesión, ¿no? Que de hecho tuvo un problema con un ojo, que algo ahí pasó.
Sí.
Y bueno, que estamos esperando a que se recupere y podamos tenerlo aquí en el programa con nosotros. You know, someone we're going to have Raúl Romero. This big Mexican guy, just like the Mexican song, this motherfucker, big guy Mexican. And he was actually one of the guys, one of the first Mexicans, along with Raúl, to fight, you know, in high levels. You know, Raúl Romero, he's K1 champion. He fought in Vegas, and you know, he fought Muay Thai, he kickboxing, and mixed martial arts, I guess. So you know, it's a long. We have a long list of successful people in Mexico, or at least that they represent the you know, the foundation of the, you know, what it is, the martial arts in Mexico City and in all Mexico, I guess. And I was saying to Jorge, you know, now we see them, you know, every Mexican working in the corner of any UFC fighter, either in boxing or some of the kind of stuff, but you always see any of those guys, you know, doing their part in the sport. So I think it's great. You know, it feels good for the sport. You see the advances and the evolution is fantastic. So we feel sorry that you know, we don't have Raúl Arbizu to you know, to emphasize in all of this, that we just, you know, have this nice conversation with the two of you guys, you know, about the sport in Mexico. But hopefully, I don't know what happened to him. We don't know. You know, sometimes as we say, things happen, and he couldn't be with us, I guess. But what do you think, Simon? It's incredible.
Yeah, I was really interested to talk to him. It's a shame he couldn't be here tonight, because there's a bunch of questions I wanted to ask him, not just about the history and the tradition, but how that tradition produced the fighters he's produced, how it produced him, and what he sees as the future. And I think, he's been quite vocal about the idea that there's an awful lot coming, especially out of Tijuana. Actually, that there's a big scene there. They've got a good setup at Entram, and they've got a lot of talented young people. But not just talented young people, but the talented ones who come in every day.
No, not really young people. Also we have the hopefully he forgets me. He doesn't get upset, but Ica Medina is probably going to be one of the first Mexican to hold the red belt, I guess, right?
Nos está saludando ahorita.
Yeah, there you go. He's there. He's watching us.
Yeah.
But like Professor Medina, Ica Medina, he's been in the game for many years now, and I'm really hoping that he can get he's the red belt, right, Jorge? I think he's the next in line, I guess.
Pues sí.
Machado. So,
ya pronto recibe su coral.
And then after that, mi professor, I'll write to the Gracies and ask.
Yes. So once he gets his belt, how old is Ica Medina now, Jorge?
¿Qué pasó?
How old is Ica Medina now?
¿Qué tan viejo es? Bueno, o sea, ¿qué edad tiene? Tiene 5 años más que yo, como 62.
62.
Sí.
Yeah, so he's gonna be one of. I was going to challenge him.
Sí, dice que va para la cinta coral, dice. Sí, exacto, ya pronto le dan. 62 años, ahí está, véanlo, 62 años de edad.
He's 62, Simon.
Yeah, I see it coming.
Yeah, he will be passed in history as one of the first Mexicans to ever hold the
red belt. Yeah,
coral belt.
No, I think que lo alcance.
I think you just challenged him to a role, mi professor. So good
luck.
Yeah,
I challenged him to a role. Only when he puts his blood, he's the red belt. But he's he's one of the guys who is putting a lot of work into the sport here in Mexico. He invests so much time too as well. He practices. Actually, Jorge is one of his direct students as well. Yeah. And he's been, helping out.
And one of the first Mexican black belts, I think, one of the first to train in the States.
He's one of the
first. Él fue el primero, sí.
Yeah, he made sure he's one of the first ones. And from there we have some other guys, Mario Delgado. We have I forgot their names. There are two brothers, Jorge. ¿Cómo se llaman?
Memo y Rodrigo Salas.
Los Salas. It's like they're like a twin brothers. They also hold one of the first black belts in Mexico, and
who trained with Professor Ica, I think.
No, actually they were training directly with the Royce Gracie, I think. They were training. Now they are separate or something. They have their own schools and so on. But they've been in sport for a while. Also, Jorge has been in Yucatan. We have the people from Acapulco who actually were training the Russian martial arts. Has called Jorge, ¿cómo se llama? The Russian, el deporte ruso.
Sambo.
Sambo. They begin training Sambo in Acapulco, in the time that Jiu-Jitsu was, the beginning of the whole sport. And they also opened their own schools. Now I think there are Gracie Barra or something like that, some of them. I think, I remember one of the professors or kids who was a blue belt, really good. He has like probably 6 years in blue belt. And he was Gibran, right? I think that's Gibran.
Gibran Alvarez.
Gibran Alvarez is a black belt. I have the opportunity to see. I saw him in Los Angeles competing there back in the day. You know, he's those people. You know, they've been around and they've been pushing new generations. And you know, now this is what it is. We have you know, a good at schools, and we continue growing, and hopefully, you know, we can you know, we can have champions. Our hope was Cain Velasquez, who was, you know, representing the Mexican population, and everyone loves it. But unfortunately, you know, whatever happened in his life, and you know, he's I think he has some personal problems, but you know, he will come back, or he comes back. You know, he was one of the guys also who inspired a lot of Mexicans and went to Mexico to help them. And you know, when he beat Brock Lesnar, he was fantastic. He became a champion. Everyone loves that stuff. You know, he was like, oh, he was great. So yeah, he's growing up so much. So Jorgito, I think pensamos que ya es tiempo.
Sí.
Apareció nuestro gran amigo Raúl Arvizu, por razones, me imagino, extraordinarias o personales, o tal vez de tecnología, no sabemos.
De conexión puede ser, sí.
Que puede ser. So I think it's time to go. We are ending the show, but it's been nice to see all of you. And we are back in track again, right? So hopefully we can have Raúl Romero next, and have him here talking about his legacy and what is he's been, you know, working or doing. You know, everyone would like to see Raúl Romero in the next show. He's one of the good fighters and a great guy, right? He's one of the most lovely Mexican fighters in Mexico. So everyone loves these guys. Has a lot of charisma, and he's super nice. But anyway, Simon.
Gracias, mis amigos, and see you next time. And
there you go. See, he's Spanish. Adios, amigos.
We'll, as my Spanish gets better and your English gets worse, we can meet in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Estamos en Dos Fronteras. Esto se ha terminado. Muchísimas gracias. Lamentablemente no pudimos tener a Raúl Arvizu con nosotros, pero estamos a la espera de que podamos contactar a Raúl Romero y sea el próximo invitado con nosotros nuevamente. Y obviamente vamos a tener a más personajes ya en la lista que vamos a seguir mencionando, pero el próximo esperamos que sea Raúl Romero, mi queridísimo Jorge.
Pues sí, nos vemos la próxima semana con el profe Raúl Romero. Esperemos que ya esté bien de salud.
Esté mucho mejor de salud, y bueno, sería genial platicar con él, saber qué está haciendo y cuál es el futuro que tiene, y bueno, que nos hable de todo, ¿no? Porque todos están aquí preguntándonos. Bueno, esto ha sido Dos Fronteras. Nos despedimos, su amigo Jorge Melchor, Jorge Braga en Yucatán, y Simon, que se nos acaba de desaparecer rapidísimo, pero bueno, estamos transmitiendo desde Nueva York y en la ciudad de Yucatán para toda la Ciudad de México, y acá en la parte de Nueva York y New Jersey. Pues saludos a todos, y esto ha sido Dos Fronteras. Hasta la próxima.